Welcome to This Week in West Hempstead for the week of June 14th. This week we do not have Dan, our executive producer and partner, so it's just Norm and I, and hopefully we're going to get through all the stories without Dan.
Let's try.
Yeah, let's try. You know what? There's a lot going on. One technical thing, just right up front, we don't have use of a computer. So all of these stories are going to be on westhempsteadecho.com or they'll be on our Facebook site. So please go to both areas and both sites and visit them, and certainly leave us your comments on the Facebook site. So the first story, Norm, is let's just dive into the budget, because you know what? We're a week away from the elections. It's a huge story. Where do you think we are right now?
It's hard to tell. I mean, they've been having public meetings. Karen was here together with Joel. They were very nice. They spent a half an hour with us. I would ask you to go to your local computer, check it out, westhempsteadecho.com, and you'll see the podcast in which they discuss the specifics of the budget.
Yeah, so you know what? It's a really complicated story, and I don't know about you, but it's been played out a whole bunch of times just walking around in West Hempstead. Now the people are actually seeing the podcast, and they saw, the interview that we had with the school board members. The next question is, well, what do you think?
Well, I don't know. I got the answers that I was looking for. They had rumors going around there was $17 million in a drawer someplace that could be used, but 12 of that 17 million is set aside. It's required for pension and welfare payments. Out of the 5 that's left, half of that is earmarked. So there isn't that much money laying around.
Well, I don't know. Let's kind of see what's going on. What was it? A couple of weeks ago, we had these notes slipped under our doors from the concerned citizens of West Hempstead. It was a little bit of a cloak and dagger group that made some very relevant points. They were great talking points. I mean, clearly, because the vote didn't pass right away. And I don't know, to some extent they've been answered, but I'm not so sure.
Well, I guess we're going to find out on the 21st, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Are there any more public meetings that they're open for conversation?
I believe that there's one more. And as soon as we do have those meetings, we'll post them up on the site, along with the other 2 board public presentations that we have up there as well.
Well, the president of the Board of Ed has said anyone that has questions can email her. Karen's open to answering questions one-on-one, no problem. If you have a specific question, send it.
So I get an email from the Friends of West Hempstead School District.
Okay.
I don't know if that's the same group as the concerned citizens, but this is another concerned group. There's a lot of concerned groups. Honestly, identify yourself. Man up. Let's not get into that.
So what's their issue now?
They have a bunch of issues. I have some issues with their grammar and some other typos, but I'm not going to go
there. We can live with that.
Their issues are, first it's, get out and vote. You got the school board vote coming out on the 21st between 7 to 9 a.m.
I agree with that.
They're, helping people, giving them links to vote, which is great. And if there's absentee, they offer their own help. I'm not sure how they're going to help, but they offer help or maybe some information. So that's all good. And they also make a statement. School district taxes represent roughly 70% of our overall tax bill. You know what? I'm not so sure that that's true, but I know the number is really large.
The school number is a huge number, which is why people are voting against it. So any increase, hurts.
So that's a big issue, but that's not the current school board's issue. That's just a fact of Long Island, and it's just out there, correct?
Correct.
All right, so let's see what else they got. They were referencing the fact that the school board vote failed, again, which is true. There's a revised budget, but they don't go into any of the specifics. And I think to your point, when we did have Karen and Joel here, they went into the specifics of the new budget, and the budget cuts, I forgot exactly.
About $250,000 was taken out of the budget.
Yeah, $256,000. So That's pretty significant, but probably not enough, certainly not enough for the concerned citizens.
Well, concerned citizens don't want any increase in their taxes. I agree with that. But you have to deal with reality. Gas has gone double in the last 2 years. I mean, you can't argue with that. Busing's a big number, huge number.
Well, let's keep going on. So then they get to the surplus. And as they're mentioning here, 10 out of the last 11 years, the board has ended the year with expenses lower than the actual budgeted amount or over budgeted.
I would hope that they would. I wouldn't expect them to spend more than they have.
And I think Joel had actually referenced the fact that the enrollment was down, and that's actually why they were under budget. But that didn't mean that they were under revenue. It meant that they were under budget. I may have that wrong, but that's how I recall it.
I think you're right.
And then they get into to the big number. And then there is this horrible, scary, over-budgeted number of $17.8 million in a reserve fund.
Clearly addressed by by Joel.
It was addressed. So let's assume that $11 million of that is addressed. So, okay, so 18, you got roughly, $7 million still in the surplus. That is a sizable chunk of change. Maybe you can't touch these other numbers. Could you touch the $7 million?
I think that actual number was closer to 5 or 6, but out of the 5 or 6, they're earmarked. They're set aside money.
Earmarked for what?
Well, there must be equipment payments that they're making. There must be other payments. I'm sure they'll make it clear to you. Anybody who's worried about an extra $3 million that's being spent on something that they claim they have money for. I don't think it's a problem. They do have a set aside for about $2 or $3 million in case the ceilings fall in case there's an emergency.
All right.
I would expect them to have something set aside.
They do need to have something.
I don't want them to call me and ask for a few extra bucks, Norm.
No.
We have a fire and we need some help.
You certainly don't want to have, the school budget in default, and you certainly don't want to see layoffs, and, you want to see the resources to budget and where they need to be in order for the kids to have the best education possible.
Right.
I get that. But there is something that's a little screwy here. I mean, let's be real. And it might take a third vote. And again, from my understanding from Joel, a third vote hits, and now you're talking about cuts that are over $700,000.
Right. Now we're talking about losing sports and extracurricular activities. That'll hurt. That'll actually impact.
That will hurt. But who knows whether or not those cuts are actually needed. Again, people are scared. They got their tax bills, in the mail. The tax bills have gone up. It's pretty nutty out there. So you got to understand the feeling that's out there.
No, I get it, and the people will speak on the 21st.
And with all that said, I'm just going to raise one other point, and this point was made very loud and clear. It's a contentious point, but I think it needs to be said, and I think it needs to be discussed, and that's the busing issue. And, my takeaway from the whole busing issue, and it is an issue that not only impacts West Hempstead, but it impacts communities all over the place. But my issue is that something has to get done. You have schools that are being bussed out, into Queens, which in general is fine and there's no problem. But then you have these ones and twos, individual, students who are going to individual schools, and the cost is really prohibitive.
Yeah,
and
$6,000 per month.
It's really out of sight, and
per child. Per child per month.
No, I understand. It's taking an Uber would be a lot cheaper. And by the way, I am available for delivering.
Me too. I'll drive
all over. I think that's our second business.
Yeah, actually, there's a much bigger underlying story, and nobody's talking about it. They went out for bids. They got one bid. One bus company submitted one bid. How's that possible? I mean, the fix is in as far as I'm concerned. There's no way that nobody else is interested in bidding on West Hempstead busing.
Listen, I don't know about that, and
I don't know about it either.
Where I'm going is that there's an issue with the busing, and I think a hard look needs to be taken at the bus system and whether or not it's working. Whether or not it's working for Hempstead in general, whether it's working for all of Nassau County. because, with gas prices going through the roof, that's a big issue. And I think if those costs can somehow be put under control, I'm not saying that that's the end all and the be all, but it's certainly a big issue going into this election.
Well, Joel certainly mentioned that for the first time, they're looking at hiring their own buses, owning the drivers as employees, and picking up the cost on their own, because it's just gotten to the point where they've taken in 20% increases each year. That's impossible to sustain.
Yeah, the costs and the costs are not going down. So again, the school budget vote is coming up next week, a week from today. We urge you to go out and vote. If you want to have a comment or you want to post a question, go to our Facebook site. We want to hear from you. This is a really, really important issue. So, just make sure that your voice is heard. All right. So, Norm, there's a couple of other, besides this, there's actually fun things going on in West Hempstead. So, let's get past all that other stuff. So, and talk about some great things. Number one, I was driving down Hempstead Turnpike and I saw that they were doing this major renovation of the Cherry Valley Shopping Center sign.
Yeah, from the World's Fair, 1964.
Yeah,
that was the opening arch, right?
No, it was not the opening arch.
Where was it from?
It was actually the arch that was in the General Foods Pavilion. Don't ask me even why I know that. I was actually 3 years old. It's one of the earliest memories I have to the World's Fair, not necessarily that pavilion. I think I'm right. You can look it up. But anyway, it was, this huge entry archway. They have it set up in the shopping center. The sign has been electrified. They got some new signage there. It's a great shopping center, with the Cherry Valley supermarket anchored in there, and it looks great.
Yeah, it's a great supermarket as well.
Absolutely. And you know what? Father's Day is right around the corner.
Time to go swimming.
And yeah, if you paid attention, you knew that we were a little bit annoyed by the fact that the outdoor pool on Nassau Boulevard was not open. Well, guess what? By Sunday, the outdoor pools are open. So everyone in the water.
Have a splash.
And if you really don't want to go into the water, how about some pickleball? There's some new pickleball courts that are opening up in the Hempstead Lake State Park. And I think you can sign up through a company called Sports Time.
Yes, there have been 80 seniors playing every morning between 8 and 12. They've had the pickleball courts to themselves all spring. Now I think they're going to get bumped, at least for part of the time, as this Limbrook company comes in and starts the formal scheduling of time slots.
Yeah, pickleball, it's a jungle. Oof.
You have it on Eagle Avenue as well. You can pay for it if you want it at Eagle Avenue.
There's pickleball courts, and opportunities opening up all over West Hempstead. It's a great way to enjoy the outdoors over the summertime.
Yeah, you got the weather.
Yeah, and you know what, Norm? So next week, I think you got something coming up about some water.
We have a few stories. We have the West Hempstead Water District story. I had no idea that the district also covered Southern Garden City and Franklin Square. They've got a third tower, which I've never seen before. That'll be on our site, and we'll be talking about that and some new equipment going in to cover carcinogens that are coming online. We also have a story coming up on the extension to the Hempstead Lake Park. It's on the Eagle Avenue side, and they're doing some major infrastructure improvements there. We'll have some pictures, and we'll be talking about that on our site as well.
Great. So we look forward to coming back next week. And again, visit us on westhempsteadecho.com and on our Facebook site. Thank you, and have a great week.
See you then.
Thanks for watching. To sponsor this and our other podcasts, reach out to us at sales@westhempsteadecho.com.